Ah. Yo pensé que iba a estar más difícil este loco, man. Una azul. Voy a ver qué hay aquí. Hay tumbas. Muchas tumbas. Yo pensé que iba a haber algo aquí, pero no hay nada. ¿A dónde iré? Vamos de aquí. Ah, miren eso, qué bonito. Vamos. Ah, mira. Aldea de las aguas invocadas. Tío, ¿qué está pasando, tío? Está muy fácil este güey. Ay, güey. No me hace nada. Muy facilito que está. Ay, güey. Enemigo vencido. Cenizas de miliciano esqueleto. Esto estuvo muy fácil. Pero me gusta ponerles una marquita de que me los chingue. Muerto. No hay nada, un castillo abandonado, unas ruinas, prácticamente unas ruinas. Bueno, quiero ir aquí rápido. Siempre he querido matar unos pajarracos de esos. Ah. Ay, con putas. 40 de fe, no mames. Nunca lo voy a usar. atributos necesarios. Creo que tengo que... Oh. Uf. Descansa un sitio de gracia, restablece un privilegio. Ay, güey. La gracia existe para guiar a los tiznados y dirigirlos por el camino correcto. Incluso ahora algunos sitios de gracia conservan ese poder. Sus rayos dorados te guiarán a tu camino. Dejarás todas las runas que tengas en lugar de tu muerte. Si mueres de nuevo antes de reclamar esa runa, se perderá para siempre. Wow, la brújula en la parte superior. Usa el dedo doblado de tiznado para escribir una señal de invocación de oro. El modo multijugador cooperativo comenzará en vez que te vayas a buscar un jugador de otro mundo. Así miras el rol de aliados doblados. Su objetivo será derrotar al jefe del área. La brújula de la parte superior de la pantalla indica la dirección de invocación. Las runas mayores que recibes al derrotar por fragmentos han perdido sus beneficios poder. Sin embargo, es posible restaurarlos en las torres divinas de las tierras intermedias. Recibe la descripción de la runa mayor para describir qué torre debería. Podrás encontrar lágrimas de cristal y de otros lugares de la tierra en los sitios de gracia puedes mezclar tierras en donde yace Cecilia Celi, la hechicera. Nuestro final se acerca. No te preocupes, tío, yo te voy a ganar. Bueno, no tiene que dar la vida para... Creí que estaba bajito. ¿Por qué hasta acá, loco? Ah, la verga. Ah. No sirve. ¿Qué es esto, loco? Qué idiota. Parece que hace estampida. ¿Cómo que no? Oh, es que a mi escudo no le puedo poner nada de eso. Ay, pero pues bueno. Aquí es un pinche mundo bien loco, cabrón. Muy fuerte este mundo. A la verga que... Oh, shit. Que aquí sí va a estar cabrón. Voy a... El plan es que la experiencia me dice que entre corriendo por mis almas y salga corriendo. Porque en muchas ocasiones he intentado matar a todos y muero y pierdo todo. Así que voy a entrar corriendo por mis almas y salir corriendo como los locos. Pero eso en un momentito. Deja apago la luz y todo.
De Jeffrey Dahmer. Hola, hola, soy yo. Tranquilidad para los que no me conocen. Les hemos esperado. Y para que sepan lo que te entiendo de estar muerto. Primero me tiro un poquito. Tengo varias visiones. Yo no soy de la mitad. No. ¿Qué le parece la mitad? Cuando es sincera es buena. Pero la mayoría de la humanidad son amistades por interés. Yo no soy de la mitad. No. ¿Qué le parece la mitad? Cuando es sincera es buena. Pero la mayoría de la humanidad son amistades por interés, a ver que sacan del amigo o de la amiga. Y esas amistades no son buenas. Hay otras amistades, tienen por ejemplo a algunas muchachas inexpertas que no tienen experiencia de la vida, pero que ya son amas de casa y se llevan con algunas otras señoras ya de malas costumbres, y esas señoras las encaminan por el sendero torcido. ¿De pocos amigos? ¿Mande? ¿De pocos amigos? Mire, amigos solamente, como dijo Juan T. González, un profesor, un peso en la bolsa, un perro y un libro. Y Dios es el único, mi amigo, mi padre, protector, todo para mí. Pero, amigos, hay que saberlos seleccionar. Y para seleccionarlos hay que ponerlos a prueba. ¿De qué se trata eso de San Valentín? Ah, pues voy a decirle a ustedes que la humanidad se enamora de la parte física, de las buenas formas, el atractivo de la persona, pero hay, como dice un proverbio muy vulgar, que hay personas con cara de ángeles y entrañas de diablo. ¿Ama a su esposa? ¿Mande? ¿Ama a su esposa? Yo soy soltero. Ah, muy bien. ¿Ama a sus prójimos? ¿Ama usted a sus prójimos? Sí. I think it's time to go.
it's time to go. I think it's time to go.
Todos los mexicanos que están viviendo en Estados Unidos y están pensando venir a México por turismo médico. A mí me falta este diente y me falta otro aquí atrás que casi no se ve. En Estados Unidos, cuando fui a preguntar cuánto me costaría un implante permanente, me dijeron que me iban a cobrar de $8,000 a $9,000 con aseguranza cada uno. Pues acabo de ir a una clínica dental aquí en la Ciudad de México. No sé si sepan, pero un implante dental se hace en 2 etapas. En la primera etapa te abren la encía con un bisturí, te hacen un hoyo con un taladro literalmente en la encía y llega hasta la quijada. Te meten un como tornillo con un hoyito en medio y ahí se queda ese tornillo por 6 meses, ya que tiene que sanar. A los 6 meses regresan y te ponen la corona, o sea, va a ser como un tornillo que va a entrar en el hoyito del tornillo que habían metido en la quijada y eso es el implante completo. Te cobran cada etapa separada. O sea, yo, porque necesito 2 dientes, me tienen que hacer en la primera etapa 2 tornillos. Y a los 6 meses, las 2 coronas. Me dijeron en la clínica dental que me van a cobrar 13,000 pesos por cada tornillo, por cada corona. Actualmente 13,000 pesos son $657. Este es el presupuesto, no le hagan caso a las primeras 2 líneas, los 2 implantes y las 2 coronas. 657 por 4 viene a $2,628 por 2 implantes dentales. ¿Cómo ven? Hablamos en los comentarios. Hola, esto va para todos los mexicanos que están viviendo.
Era una puta televisión. Dios madre, no me quedó. En este pinche lugar no cabe. Y es la única opción. Así es de que, bueno, hay que tomar decisiones. Porque a la puta puerta, ay, la cierra a huevo.
And welcome back. to The Factor Uncensored. A crackdown on Haitian immigrants could seriously mess up your trip to the Dominican Republic if it's all true. The U.S. Embassy there is officially putting out a warning for dark-skinned black travelers. According to the embassy, the country's migration agents could mistake black Americans or other people with dark skin tones for Haitian immigrants. And if you leave your passport at the resort, you could even be detained. My next guest here on The Factor Uncensored, Fox 26 photographer Tori Walker and attorney Dennis Sperling. Both of them spend regular time in the Dominican Republic. Glad to have you both here. So, Tori, when you heard this, you and I talked over the weekend, and you didn't put much weight into it because you know what the complexion of that country is. So your thoughts on this?
Well, most of their dollars come from tourism, people coming in to vacation there. So to do anything that would hurt that, I think, would be counterproductive to, the way that they make their money. So I just don't put too much credence into it.
And Dennis, you spend a lot of time there as well. And when you hear that they may be going after dark-skinned individuals because they don't want Haitians in that country, that crosses a line into...
True facts about you are...
I don't have a belly button.
Wait, what?
Criticando a la gente, y con no van a vivir. Hombre y mujer, mira, tengo un tremendo pito, mira, ve. Un labio, mira, escúchame bien. Este labio, hay un labio, y aquí tengo el clítoris. Y esta pepa de vaca, mira, este pepito de vaca. Gracias, Eri, gracias por seguirme, amor. Levante las manos, dice. No va a comer usted, hija, voy a comer yo. Yo voy a comer, ni va a comer otra persona tampoco, voy a comer yo. Vamos a hacer caso porque... Qué estúpida, yo creo que ni ellos ni... Ahí con el culo así, ¿ven? Rascando el culo y cocinando, rascando el culo y cocinando. Luego con aquella tremenda bodoca, aquí, ¿ven? Con el sudor aquí, aquí, y criticando a estas perras. Qué barbaridad, hija. Es bueno de un hombre, pero de una mujer qué feo se escucha, mi niña. Qué feo se escucha en una mujer, que una mujer venga a opinar cuando en realidad no hace nada. No hace nada tampoco ni cocina. Sin oficio, oye. Mira, a ver, ¿tú dónde estoy? Vos estás sin oficio.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I'm talking about like
Vamos, amigo. Y tal vez en esta.
You guys can say hi to me.
Ya lo sabe, padrino. Y más si hay hijos.
Los otros son muchos, pero son más pequeños. Pero bueno, a mí me encanta hacer banners. En la casa el número de teléfono. Ya vieron 5 minutitos me tomó hacer este banner. 4 pies por 4 pies.
Luis de León, ¿qué tan buena puede ser una printer Mimaki?
Yo tuve mi máquina, es una muy buena máquina. ¿Cuál tenía? ¿La 365? ¿Se me hace que es? No, 3, y no me acuerdo, pero yo tuve la Mimaki, la CD, no me acuerdo. Yo no la tengo, fue porque se me tapó una cabeza, yo tenía todas las cabezas ahí.
No es que tenga nada de malo ser comerciante, yo en algún tiempo lo fui, ¿no? Chacharera. Pues sí. No tiene nada de malo, lo malo es quedarte con alguien que su mayor aspiración es eso. Y que sobre todo quiere que tú lo patrocines, ¿no? Que tú le hagas un prestamito, que le saques un compartamos banco, güey. Que le consigas la mercancía. Entonces, yo dije, con este güey me muero de hambre, me tengo que poner a trabajar. Las mujeres sabemos ese pedo. Las mujeres nos ponemos valientes y fuertes cuando empezamos a ver la clase de relación en la que estamos. Yo un día dije, no manches, a chingarle, güey, 2, 3 turnos al día, poner un negocio.
None of that. Times around folks who are LGBTQ plus, a lot of times around other issues, and
this is from 408.
Sebut air je di sini. Lagi nampak kan? Sini panas sikit. Sebelah sini kita lagi nampak. Okey, boleh ya? Itulah tak nampak sangat semburan. Okey. Kau tak tangan ni biasa.
Tak jaga kau, tak jaga.
Yang muda pun tak kuat macam ni.
Jenuh tahan lepas kau. Bawa dia tak.
Zaim terbang belah sana ya. Belah sini. Tuan tanah pun dah minta izin.
Boleh.
Boleh.
Okey, Jana.
Kita terbang air biasa sahaja guys.
Ini nak. Okey, tu nak.
Yang mana satu? Ni. Okey.
Abang pergi sana betul cakap benar. Abang dah benar ayat tu.
Terbang
apa sana? Dari ujung ni. Sampai trik ni. Lepas tu. Ayat sampai benar ni.
Okey, dengan request daripada Tuan Tanah. Alright. Request semua. Tiba-tiba. Okay, so kita nak fly. Weh, ini confirm nampak. Sebab belah sini macam tak ada matahari. So akan nampak sikit semburan dia. Kampung Lahar kepala batas. Okay, kepala batas. Pulau Pinang. Pulau Pinang guys. Okey, Pinang. Okey guys, Pinang. Dia dah meracun. Dia cakap dia meracun kat sini. Dia meracun. Dia dah meracun. Dia sebab air saja. Kalau dia susah hati. Dia biasa saja.
Ay, hijo de tu puta madre.
Tapi selalu dia bawa betul-betul je. Sebab senyap je lah. Paling lama ni. Kita boleh tetap kalau nak laju. Boleh, lambat pun boleh. Dia kalau laju je cepat hati lah. Kalau lambat. Ya. Iya, betul. Oh, tak beracun sebab dah ada beracun dah. Tak beracun dah. Yang ni yang ribut lama punya. Yang lama punya. Okey, boleh kejap. Kejap ni tu buat. Habis. Dan satu kali. Saya turun auto lama ke?
Please, I can't hurt them. You're please, you are you the sweetie there?
Tapi kita nak terbang ni memang keadaannya memang nampak sebab sana di macam matahari bersih. Tadi bersih. Kita terbang bersih ni nampak sikit lah. Nampak semburan kalau nak tengok semburan untuk tidur ke tu. Okey dah. Okey kan? Keluar kita, sini tu. Tak apa pun. Pasal patah balik tu, tapi nampak tu pun nampak semua. Zaim, jangan pulang. Balik sini tak? Balik sini bawa air tak? Balik sini? Balik sini pun ada air tak?
Kalian nak bawa boleh?
Buat macam tu. Stop screen. Apa masalahnya? Kejap nak patah balik. Tak, kita yang stop kan?
Kita nak pergi nampak dia punya debu ni.
Debu ni dah.
Nak rakam.
Nak rakam. Saya sebut lagi dekat sikit sebut. Dia orang nampak semua ni. Jadi baru kita sembuh lah. Tak nak pusing di sini.
The moon has craters on it, but we never see the moon get struck by anything. Where did these craters come from on the moon? Even Mercury has craters on it. Where did these craters come from? Mars has a canyon much larger than Grand Canyon. 4 of the planets today still have rings around them, and the rings around these planets are made of rock and ice. Very interesting. Now, Walt Brown thinks some of the craters on the moon were formed when the fountains of the deep broke open and rocks went flying up out of Earth's gravitational pull, drifted around for a while and clobbered into the moon. He thinks the comets came from Earth, and water on Mars came from Earth when the fountains of the deep broke open. Here's an article about a scientist who discovered chunks of ice as big as this auditorium are hitting the Earth all the time. They dissolve in space, but it rains down as water. There's water everywhere in space. Scientific and technology article here. The Bible says all the fountains of the deep were broken up in one day. If you smoothed out the Earth, the oceans right now would be 12,000 feet deep. Oceans average 12,000 feet deep. But if you smoothed out the Earth, they would average 8,000 feet deep everywhere. There's plenty of water on the Earth to cover the planet. When the climbers got to the top Mount Everest, 1953, the year I was born, they got up here on Mount Everest. They began to find something interesting. Petrified clams on top Mount Everest. In Peru, a couple years ago, they found giant oysters up to 11 feet across, 2 miles above sea level. That's a big oyster. Usually see them now. And these clams are interesting. I've got some on the table down here. They're petrified clams in the closed position. Now, you get bazillions of petrified clams in the closed position on top of mountains. The best explanation for this is they were buried alive. Sometimes huge beds of these were found. A guy in Alabama said, "Brother Hogan, you want some petrified clams for a museum?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "They're 4 feet tall in my backyard." When he rototills his garden, he brings up thousands of petrified clams, closed petrified clams. Even fragile items like eggs are found fossilized. I believe the sediments would settle out of this flood. Fine sediments would preserve things in incredible detail. There's a fossilized jellyfish. We have an arm to an octopus, fossilized octopus arm in our museum. Soft tissue simply doesn't fossilize. Very special conditions are required. Like I said, the mountains of the deep broke open. So I think the Earth got struck by a meteor. The water underneath went shooting to the surface, and the Earth was covered with the water. The Earth's crust is kind of interesting. Pretty thin, actually, in some spots. 3 to 5 miles thick under the crust, 30 miles thick under the continents. The hot water from inside the Earth would come shooting out, and it would kill animals that live within a certain radius of the crack as the hot water escaped. As the salt bulged up in the middle, the plates are going to slide down, explaining, as I said earlier, about the wrinkled mountains. Take a look at these mountains in British Columbia. They're compressed from the end, wrinkled up. What happened? During the first few months of the flood, the dead animals would settle out. People ask, why aren't more human fossils found? Well, humans are smarter than animals. Some humans and some animals. And they would tend to avoid drowning till the last possible minute. Animals that are buried on top or in very, very shallow soil are not going to fossilize. Think of all the millions of buffalo that were killed out west in the last few hundred years. None of them fossilized because they weren't buried. So fossils only form if an animal is buried pretty deeply and pretty quickly before it has time to decay. Marvin Lubenow says about 4,000 sets of human remains have been found. I think there are fewer humans than animals found fossilized because they were smarter and would avoid drowning until later in the flood, and therefore they're not going to be fossilized. We'll cover more on that in 57. The trees that are uprooted would float around in big log masses the size of Texas. They're going to be buried and become the coal seams that we see today. Moving water does a very interesting phenomenon. As water is moving, it automatically sorts things. It can form 5 or 6 layers simultaneously. There's a good videotape called Experiments in Stratification that shows the top strata can actually be older than the bottom strata. If the water's moving, it forms multiple layers simultaneously. As during the flood, the water would be swirling around, and the dead animals would tend to, get caught in these little swirls called eddies. This happens today. You walk along the river, see the river moving one direction, but along the side, there's little eddies swirling water. This would happen on a global scale during the flood of Noah. As the animals would float around for a few weeks, they would rock, and their head falls off, a tail falls off, and legs fall off. And when they finally get buried, you end up with tangled up messes of dinosaur bones. Notice these backbones here have no head attached, no legs, just the backbone. The moon has craters on it, but we never see the moon get struck by anything. Where did these craters come from? Even Mercury has craters on it. Where did these craters come from? Mars has a canyon much larger than Grand Canyon. 4 of the planets today still have rings around them. And the rings around these planets are made of rock and ice. Very interesting. Now, Walt Brown thinks some of the craters on the moon were formed when the fountains of the deep broke open, and rocks went flying up out of Earth's gravitational pull. Drifted around for a while and clobbered into the moon. He thinks the comets came from Earth. And water on Mars came from Earth when the fountains of the deep broke open. Here's an article about a scientist who discovered chunks of ice as big as this auditorium are hitting the Earth all the time. They dissolve in space, but it rains down as water. There's water everywhere in space. Scientists and technology are prepared. The Bible says all the fountains of the deep are broken up in one day. If you smooth out the Earth, the oceans right now would be 12,000 feet deep, and oceans average 12,000 feet deep. But if you smoothed out the Earth, they would average 8,000 feet deep everywhere. There's plenty of water on the Earth to cover the planet. When the climbers got to the top Mount Everest, 1953, the year I was born, they got up there on Mount Everest. They began to find something interesting. Petrified clams on top Mount Everest. In Peru a couple years ago, they found giant oysters up to 11 feet across, 2 miles above sea level. It's a big oyster. You should see the pearl. And these clams are interesting. I've got some on the table down here. They're petrified clams in the closed position. Now, think about it for a minute. When a clam dies, it opens. The muscle inside relaxes, the ligaments on the outside pull the shell open, almost instantly. When a clam dies, it opens up. How would you get bazillions of petrified clams in the closed position on top of mountains all over the world? The best explanation for this is they were buried alive. Sometimes huge beds of these are found. A guy in Alabama said, "Brother Hogan, you want some petrified clams for a museum?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "They're 4 feet thick in my backyard." When he rototills his garden, he brings up thousands of petrified clams, closed petrified clams. Even fragile items like eggs are found fossilized. I believe the sediments would settle out of this flood. Fine sediments would preserve things in incredible detail. There's a fossilized jellyfish. We have an arm to an octopus, fossilized octopus arm in our museum. Soft tissue simply doesn't fossilize under very special conditions are required. The Bible says the fountains of the deep broke open. So I think the earth got struck by a meteor. The water underneath went shooting to the surface, and the earth was covered with water. See, the earth's crust is kind of interesting. Pretty thin, actually, in some spots. 3 to 5 miles thick under the crust of the oceans and 30 miles thick under the continents. The hot water from inside the earth would come shooting out, and it would kill animals that live within a certain radius of the crack as the hot water escapes. As the salt bulged up in the middle, the plates are going to slide down, explaining, as I said earlier, about the wrinkled mountains. Take a look at these mountains in British Columbia. They've been pressed from the end, wrinkled up. What happened? During the first few months of the flood, the dead animals would settle out. People ask, why aren't more human fossils found? Well, humans are smarter than animals, some humans are, and some animals, and they would tend to avoid drowning till the last possible minute. Animals that are buried on top or very, very shallow soil are not going to fossilize. Think of all the millions of buffalo that were killed out west in the last 200 years. None of them fossilized because they weren't buried. So fossils only form if an animal is buried pretty deeply and pretty quickly before it has time to decay. Marvin Lubenow says about 4,000 sets of human remains have been found. I think there are fewer humans than animals found fossilized because they were smarter and would avoid drowning till late.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Free Coffee Tuesdays, only for Wawa Rewards members.
As a geologist, I've had a lot of surprises in the field, but I never expected that a field excursion to a remote corner of Tibet would lead me to a new appreciation for the biblical story of Noah's flood. But there in the headwaters of the Brahmaputra River, we discovered evidence for how a wall of ice and mud descended the flanks of the 25,000-foot-high peak to block the river. And this glacial dam backed up an enormous lake on the edge of the Tibetan Plateau. And as you might imagine, ice does not make for a very good dam. And when the dam failed, as it inevitably would have, it sent a wall of
everybody. It's nice to see a wonderful turnout for the Dean's Lecture here. So perhaps remind you or tell you, the Radcliffe Institute is primarily a multidisciplinary institute that knits together the arts, humanities, sciences, and social sciences. We have a fellowship program. We have a program on science symposia. There's a gender conference coming up on gender and violence on April 9th and 10th. My name is John Keith. So let me introduce our speaker for today, David Montgomery. He is a professor at the University of Washington and heads a geomorphology group. Is also a MacArthur Fellow, the author of 3 books and another book that is forthcoming. And we've had somewhat similar interests in kind of the way science develops in a not so straight and narrow path as sometimes we're taught. And so this appeals to me greatly. Geomorphology, for those of you who don't know, is the study of how the topography of Earth's surface is influenced by events like earthquakes and floods. And in fact, the issue of the flood and the Noah story is the topic of today's story. I should mention on a personal note, I always like to throw on a personal note, is a few years back I was doing a backpacking trip in eastern Washington state. And as I was driving to do this backpacking trip, we were traveling through this strange landscape, and I had no idea what on earth was happening with this landscape. It looked weird, something I'd never seen before, and I was just scratching my head as to what on earth might have created this. So about a year and a half ago, I read his book, The Rocks Don't Lie, and in it he has a piece in the chapter about the so-called scablands in eastern Washington, where this lake, about 15,000 years ago, Lake Missoula, burst forth and flooded that part of eastern Washington and created the landscape. And all of a sudden I realized that what I was seeing was the result of this giant flood. And so all the stuff that I didn't know how to interpret came together in one flash of insight, and I thought that was just absolutely marvelous. So I was delighted with his book, and this was one of the motivations for inviting him here, because it's cross-disciplinary and it's a fascinating topic. So without any further ado, David, welcome to hear you talk about faith in nature.
I'm a geologist by training, as you've just heard, and one of the things that I've been asked about by this book, and you may be wondering, is why would a professional geologist in the 21st century write a book about Noah's flood? I hope that about 40 minutes from now, you'll sort of see the path that I took in sort of coming to write a book about Noah's flood and share the sort of the interest and the excitement and the thinking of the history and development of the science of geology, something that I wasn't really formally taught in any detail other than what I now know as a cartoon version. But also in Christianity, the way theology looked at the idea and thought about the flood, the way that...
I am the Fenelon, warrior, here by decree of my father. The pleasure's mine, as a fellow tarnished, guided by grace to the round table hold. Ah, yes. I wonder if you've met my foster father. If you haven't already, I advise you introduce yourself. Father is leader of the round table. I'm sure talking to him will be worth your while. It's about time I headed off. I'll see you again, warrior, should the fates deign it. It's about time I headed off. I'll see you again, warrior, should the fates deign it. It's about time I headed off. I'll see you again, warrior, should the fates deign it.
Have you ever felt the curse? With your whole being, the pox upon life itself, feared and despised by all, the reviled blessing. Apparently not. You are but a lamb, a stranger to defilement, ignorant of your own ignorance. You no longer interest me. I've been long without peace. Don't spoil my quietude. I asked you not to disturb me. Be thankful of the whole serenity. It is all that keeps your death and defilement at bay. I asked you not to disturb me. Be thankful of the whole serenity. It is all that keeps your death and defilement at bay. I've been waiting for your I've decided I'm off in search of a noble scholar known as the Gold Mask, to beg his instruction. We may not meet again for some time. If there's any incantations you wish to learn, now's the moment. May the Golden Order shine through you. Further study of incantations, is it? I can happily spare the time and applaud your enthusiasm. May the Golden Order shine through.
Did you need something else?
Wow, está abriendo todo.
Are you that new tarnish? You've done well. I am Enya, the Finger Reader. I interpret the words of the fingers, envoys to the greater will. Look there. The fingers tremble to welcome you, Shadbearer. Let their wisdom wash over you. Great Elden Ring, root of the Golden Order, anchor of all lands, giver of grace, wellspring of all joy. Until it was shattered, the tragic corruption of the Order has taken its toll. Across the realm, life lies in ruin, fallen to pieces. Foul curses and misery spread unabated, but the great will has not abandoned the realm, nor the life that inhabits it. So it is that the tarnished are guided by grace, called to act. Brave tarnished, your great rune is a handsome shard of the Elden Ring. Seek another of its kind. to become the Elden Lord and restore the Golden Order. Let the words of the fingers guide you. Well, I see. A remembrance of gold has found its way into your possession. Demigods and even the creator of the champions are hewn by the Earth Tree upon their end into remembrances. They are valuable indeed. These remembrances yet house the power of their former masters. And should you wish to wield that same power, well, I will lend you the strength of the fingers. Do not recoil from my offer. The fingers guide us all. And you, Tarnish, you are here to take, are you not?
Bueno.
Great runes are the stuff of demigods, the children of the goddess, Queen Marika, she who is vessel of the Elden Ring. And so the greater will has long been tarnished in the demigodric thereof. Greater the children tainted by Anso, the great harm indeed. The demigods Godric thereof. The children of the tainted Anso, the great and tarnished, so indeed. But remember, the demigods are each Godric the greater runt of them.
Ya estoy durmiendo yo a la verga, mejor ya estuvo este pedo. No, vamos, estoy durmiendo yo.